You, Mamma Mia, today's program is going to be dripping with dynamic excitement. I mean, head-scratching moment after head-scratching moment from the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, who is T-minus 9 months from getting on his horse and trotting off into the sunset. What's the most famous horse that's out there, Judah? Is it Mr. Ed, the talking horse? Put you on a two-shot over there. What is the most famous horse in the world, ladies and gentlemen? Is it Mr. Ed, the talking horse, who they built a sitcom around?
Probably depends who you ask.
You know what? I think
Secretariat?
I think it's Secretariat. Secretariat's got to be the most famous horse in the world. Am I right, folks?
Probably.
What is the most famous horse in the world, would you say? Bill McChesney, Carol Thorpe, the Queen of Jack Jewett, McChesney, the Mayor of McIntyre, John Blair over on LinkedIn, Vanessa Parkhill in Earlysville, Deep Throat, the viewers and listeners of all shapes, sizes, and mindsets. What's the most famous horse that's out there? Whatever it is, the governor, Glenn Youngkin, the former co-CEO of the Carlyle Group, a man with hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth, a man with 9 months left in his term of governor, a man for the most part has run in a lot of circles a presidential type of, who is managed for a lot of people in a lot of influential political circles. They characterize Youngkin as influential and certainly on the short list to be pushed by the Republican Party as a candidate for presidency post-Trump. And the last, couple of days, couple of weeks, now people are going to point to some of the voting, some of the vetoing he's done with what the Democrats and what Richmond has pushed with an increased tax opportunity for schools, funding schools. Mm-hmm. Some people are going to push, Youngkin is still championing and empowering, semi-automatic gun owners. Some of that legislation has come out of late that he's vetoed.
Yeah, just recently.
Budget cuts and tax cuts. But look, he's a Republican. That's what the guy's going to do.
Yeah,
He's a Republican that's a tax cut Republican. The thing that's been surprising from the governor of Virginia is this Bert Ellis brouhaha. The man either used Bert Ellis like a pawn, used Bert Ellis like a gardening hoe on a spring evening in Charlottesville, Virginia, where he's trying to get that hard red clay more malleable so he can plant his strawberries and his onions and his broccoli. What do you plant? I don't plant anything. The only thing I probably would plant is something I probably can't mention on the talk show over here. Youngkin uses Ellis to eviscerate diversity, equity, and inclusion. As soon as DEI is done, Youngkin fires, cans, pink slips, Dear John letters, Bert Ellis. This has materialized in the last 3 days.
Yeah, I guess.
Since Monday?
Yeah.
The Washington Post citing unnamed sources. Who were those unnamed sources?
Yeah.
Those unnamed sources, were they leaked from Jim Ryan's side? From other Board of Visitors' side? From liberal left UVA? Were they leaked from the governor's mansion? I'm curious of what your take is, Judah. I'm curious what your take is, viewers and listeners. Regardless, Bert Ellis is no more. The owner of the White Spot, the Atlanta businessman, a gentleman who's a double who proudly lives in the Charlottesville area 10 days a month to serve on his post on the Board of Visitors. He's been replaced, Judah Wickhauer, by
Ken Cuccinelli.
And Ken Cuccinelli, ladies and gentlemen, may be a more extreme version of Bert Ellis.
Without all the fun.
Ken Cuccinelli is a on-paper vanilla version of Bert Ellis. But when no one's looking, Ken Cuccinelli is a devious mover and shaker with extremist ideology positions. And we'll unpack some of those positions, including his self-described opposition to homosexuality, his opposition to same-sex marriage, his staunch defending of anti-sodomy laws as former Attorney General, his vehement opposition to climate change.
Yep.
I mean, this is a documented history for a man who has been in the political stratosphere for Judah decades.
Yep.
The Virginia State Senate, an attorney general, a man who's run for governor. Youngkin replaces a man that is a bull in a china shop with, what's the Cuccinelli metaphor, Carol Thorpe? If Bert Ellis is the bull in the china shop, what is Ken Cuccinelli? Some of my analogies would not be so flattering.
I don't know if I have an analogy. He is a career politician, though.
Understatement.
And by a lot of reports, he hasn't succeeded at much. In fact, he lost. Didn't he lose the governor race to Youngkin's predecessor?
You've researched him on there. Are you asking questions you know answers to?
I'm pretty sure he lost to. Now I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Judah. Viewers and listeners, like and share the show. Like and share the show. A lot we're going to cover on today's program. We are going to talk on today's show about a new sandwich shop in Belmont. We're going to talk on today's show Isaac McKneely being linked to the University of Kentucky, to North Carolina, to Louisville. I heard Bobby Chabra this morning on the radio saying McKneely's linked to the Kentucky Wildcats. There's a tracker saying UNC's the favorite right now. Jerry Ratcliffe publishes on Twitter, and he's been all over this coverage, friend of the program and the star of the Jerry and Jerry Show, that Louisville is very interested. And every day that goes by, the University of Virginia is gaining less and less control over Isaac McKneely's last year of eligibility. I want to highlight the fact that our firm, Charlottesville Business Brokers, has two groups of cash buyers, established business owners with significant cash positions that are looking to buy businesses in this community. They're not fools. They're not going to overpay. They are not fools. They are not going to overpay. But they do not need SBA loans that take forever to materialize or bank financing. Cash positions that are deep, robust, and money holders that are sophisticated and nuanced with buying businesses. We are tasked with finding them opportunity. I'm passing that on to you, the viewer and listener. So much to cover on the show. Carol Thorpe says, Judah, Ken lost the governorship to tricky Terry McAuliffe.
Yeah.
Bill McChesney says, Ken is a snake in the weeds. Your words, not mine, Bill McChesney. Your words, not mine. We know the BOV is often watching this program because we get emails from them about what we're saying and how we're depicting them. Carol Thorpe says, I have known Ken Cuccinelli. You got to get some photos on screen. I have known Ken Cuccinelli well from my days leading the Jefferson area Tea Party. If Governor Youngkin thinks he is a docile seat filler with Ken, he best think again. The dismissal of Ellis did not surprise me, but if his choice of Ken to cool off the fire absolutely did. Well said, Carol Thorpe, Carol Thorpe, Carol Thorpe. Georgia Gilmer, welcome to the program. Newspaper, radio, and print, welcome to the show. John Blair, very curious of your take on this as a man that follows politics very closely in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Do we recap what happens? Philip Dow in Scottsville, thank you for watching the show. I will offer a Cliff Notes version of what has happened. Earlier this week, the Washington Post, and the Washington Post, frankly, folks, has become the substance or the flooring of hamster and gerbil and mice cages. and no longer the second or third most influential newspaper in the Commonwealth, in the country that we call the United States. There was a time where it was the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal were in the top echelon, and the Washington Post was right there knocking at the door. Whether it's Bezos buying the Washington Post, or whether it's these publications just becoming shills or megaphones of one-party ideology and no longer offering unbiased coverage. The papers of record for the nation, the New York Times and the Washington Post, are shadows of their former selves, and frankly, the flooring of gerbil and hamster cages. I read the Wall Street Journal. I will read the Financial Times, and from there, I'm cherry-picking coverage based on journalists that I trust, podcasters and influencers that I follow. It does not carry the clout and weight that it used to do, the New York Times and the Washington Post. Regardless, the Post has been all over this story. I'm dying to know who the two sources the Washington Post had in the palm of their hands, in their trusted purview. They highlight before the story breaks. They break the story that Youngkin is about to pink slip Bert Ellis, and he's giving Ellis an opportunity to resign from the board. And he says, Ellis, you can resign based on health issues or being too busy as a businessman from Atlanta. Ellis says, nah, dog. Nah, dog. No way, Jose. I ain't resigning. That's against the honor code. I'm not too busy. I'm not lying. I'm not violating the honor code here at UVA. I ain't resigning. Then Glenn Youngkin says, all right, I'm going to call you into the principal's office. I want a meeting with you in my mansion on Tuesday of this week. Bert, come into my mansion. You're going to meet with me. You're called into the principal's office. Did he make Bert wait before seeing him? I bet you he did. You know that's a power dynamic. Do you make Ellis wait in the waiting room for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? If I put the over-under of Bert Ellis waiting to meet Glenn Youngkin at 15 minutes, would you take the over or under of Ellis waiting to see Youngkin on Tuesday?
I want the over-under of Ellis showing up late.
Oh, wow. So the power struggle starts with Ellis showing up to the meeting tardy, you think?
Well, if he...
I would be surprised if that happened.
If he has any inkling that he's going to be sat in a waiting room and told to hold on a second, I don't see why.
To be a fly on the wall in Tuesday's governor's mansion meeting with Bert Ellis and Glenn Youngkin. Regardless, the meeting didn't go well for Bert.
Wait, wasn't it Wednesday?
Believe it was Tuesday.
I thought
Nope, it was Tuesday.
Okay.
It was Tuesday. The letter came out yesterday. The news broke yesterday. The meeting was Tuesday. Very interesting. Do you think in that meeting on Tuesday, the governor said, and are you rotating the lower thirds on screen?
Not right now.
We should.
Okay.
The viewers and listeners like the lower thirds. Do you think in that meeting on Tuesday, Governor Glenn Youngkin said to Bert Ellis face-to-face, you're off the Board of Visitors? Or do you think Governor Glenn Youngkin said to Bert Ellis, I need to think about it?
If I had to guess, I would say that Youngkin probably tried to make a case for Ellis removing himself from the Board of Visitors. And when that didn't work, he's like, well, then here's how it's going to go.
I think that would be the case as well. I think in that meeting on Tuesday, I agree with you as well. Stephen O'Dwyer, one of the best squash coaches in America, watching the program right now. In that meeting on Tuesday, I would say that Glenn Youngkin offered a lifeline to Bert Ellis to save face. And he said, Mr. Ellis, please, let's use health and sickness or your busy schedule as a reason for you stepping down from this board. And I guarantee you, Bert Ellis said, I'm not going to do that. You're going to have to fire me from the board if you're going to want me off the board. And then Glenn Youngkin, I would bet Glenn Youngkin in that meeting said, well, Bert, I have to let you go. And then he papers and documents the trail with the Dear John letter.
Yep.
And in the Dear John letter to Bert Ellis, he says, "You're no longer fit to be on the UVA BOV." Unbelievable story.
Yep.
Then the news breaks that Bert Ellis, a man who traveled from Atlanta, Georgia, across state lines in a luxury automobile, drives his automobile to Charlottesville. His luxury automobile to Charlottesville goes through Atlanta, goes through the Carolinas, comes into the Commonwealth, pulls into CVille, finds a parking space right around grounds, heads to the lawn, one of the most prestigious stretches of dirt in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson's lawn. Passes the rotunda, goes to the lawn where the creme de la creme of students at the University of Virginia are living. They're bypassing having showers in their rooms for the pedigree and for the legacy and the reputation that comes with living on the lawn. He heads straight to a young woman's door. He sees a sign on the door that he heard about days, if not weeks ago, while in Atlanta. He pulls out of his pocket, this is all documented, ladies and gentlemen, out of his pocket, first he knocks on her door.
And she slammed it in his face.
He knocks on her door and tries to persuade an undergraduate college student to take a sign off her door that basically said, "Duck UVA," F-U-C-K UVA, and then made some KKK references to UVA.
KKK cops.
On the sign. He tries to persuade her to cut the sign off the door. She says, "Dude, you're a stranger. Stranger danger. I don't know who you are. You're randomly knocking on the door to where I live. I live here by myself." She slams the door in his face, just like probably all of us would. And when she slams the door on his face...
Most of us, I think, would expect that knock on the door if we put those things...
I don't think so. I disagree with that statement. I vehemently disagree with that statement.
You don't think...
I would never put that sign on the door, F-U-C-K-U-V-A. I would never put a sign on the door that makes reference of the KKK and cops and police officers.
I know that, but
at the same time, I understand that we live in a country where we have rights of speech. And while I find the speech that she's choosing to be deplorable and disgusting and far from aligning with my personal beliefs, I respect the fact that she has rights to do this. No, I would never knock on her door and try to take that sign off her door. Never.
I didn't say you would, and I'm not disputing any of the things that you said. But if you did put something like that on your door, would you not expect to have perhaps a knock or two from people who disagree with the statement?
No, I still would not.
Wow.
Not on the University of Virginia lawn, which is an epicenter of activism and liberalism and far left beliefs. No, if any spot in Charlottesville that I would say is most welcoming to signage like that on a consistent basis, it's the lawn.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be welcomed.
Is there any spot in Charlottesville that you can think of, any spot in Central Virginia, that would be more welcoming or hospitable to F-U-C-K UVA signs and KKK police messaging on a sign? That's the spot. Bert Ellis knocks on the door, says, "Take this sign off." And he probably didn't say it nicely. She slams the door in his face, and he pulls out a razor blade out of his pocket and tries to cut it off her door, saw it off her door. This is a crazy story. Then the Democrats try to block him from being on the Board of Visitors, Youngkin's handpicked guy, a man who donated to Youngkin. They assassinate his character by saying he's a racist, calling him a bunch of nasty names, right? A bunch of nasty names. He still makes it because two Democrats break rank and they align with Youngkin-led Republicans.
Wild.
Ellis gets on the BOV because 2 Democrats break rank and align with the Youngkin-led Republicans. He's on the BOV. Immediately on the BOV, Birdie Boy doesn't realize that anything he does can be Freedom of Information Act requested. He gets FOIA'd. In a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act by a local journalist, they find out he's sending text messages that UVA is in a death fight for the soul of the University of Virginia. Along those lines, that's what he's texting.
Along with calling students, some UVA students, numbnuts, I believe.
Calls UVA students numbnuts. Bert Ellis calls UVA students numbnuts on the Board of Visitors. Says we're in a death fight for the soul of the University of Virginia. Has to apologize to the other board members for saying we're in a mortal combat. Hadouken! Fight for the soul.
You're mixing your
You're
mixing your video game metaphors.
It's been a long time, Judah. What's the Hadouken from? Street Fighter, right?
Yeah.
Street Fighter Hadouken. Mortal Kombat. This is a Mortal Kombat, right? Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm. Finish him.
Finish him. Can you give me a Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat reference again?
Another one?
Yeah.
Fatality.
Fatality. Bert Ellis is Street Fighter and Mortal Kombating text message commentary to other board members. It comes out in a FOIA, including the fact that he calls students numbnuts. He has to apologize to the other board members for saying we're Mortal Kombating in a street fight for the soul of UVA.
Oh, and then
refuses to apologize for calling the students numbnuts.
When asked after making
incredible.
After making his apology to the Board of Visitors, he was asked if he should also apologize to the students, and he's like, "No, that was good."
He said, "I'm okay with calling the students numbnuts."
One apology is enough.
This guy is amazing.
The more I've read about him in the last week, the more I like him.
Should we have a poster of Bert Ellis in the studio somewhere? A life-size cutout of Bert Ellis? I mean, now he's not on the Board of Visitors. I could go back to calling him Razorblade.
Do we use a razor blade to cut out
hold on. Carry the show, Judah. Carry the show.
I jest.
Carry
But
the show.
seriously, I really enjoy reading about Bert Ellis. He's passionate and willing.
Hadouken! Mortal Kombat!
Oh, man.
He's off the board. I could go back to calling him Razorblade.
Was that the only reason you stopped calling him, is because he was on the board?
He sent me an email saying, don't call him Razorblade anymore. We have an email from the Jefferson Council saying, don't call him Razorblade anymore, and indicated they were a version of scissors and not a razor blade, and that the moniker is following him around grounds in life.
So now you're going to go back to calling him that?
Well, he's not on the board anymore.
Well, they didn't ask you to stop calling them that just because he was on the board.
Well, that was the influence they had. Now he's off the board.
So
he is off the board after being. So
civility is off the table.
I mean,
too?
One of the things that makes the show great is we take topic matter of significance and add a little humor and entertainment to it. I think that's one of the reasons why people watch. Ben Sellers, I'm going to get to your tweet in a matter of moments. Deep Throat, you're coming up here. A lot we're going to cover on the program. Did Glenn Youngkin use Bert Ellis? Bert Ellis eradicated diversity, equity, and inclusion from UVA. The number one driver of Youngkin's order to eradicate DEI.
I wouldn't say that he did it single-handedly.
But he led the charge.
He definitely led the charge.
He led the charge.
He definitely, once he grabbed hold of that pant leg, he did not let go.
No.
And
a dog with a bone.
And he was not going to let the university get away with shuffling everything around and continuing business as usual in terms of DEI.
Ben Sellers, watching the program on Twitter, he offers this tweet. Why is it more acceptable to allow obscenities on the lawn, a UNESCO World Heritage Site traversed by many visitors and families, than it would be to shout out in the middle of a classroom? Students given the privilege of law rooms have an obligation to represent the best of UVA. I agree 100% with what Ben Sellers said right there. He's the executive director of the Jefferson Council. He's watching the program right now, and he's tweeting on the show. Mr. Sellers and the Jefferson Council, I admire a lot of the work that you do. I appreciate you watching the program, Mr. Sellers. Okay, here's what I have found with activists. An activist is much more likely to hang a sign on the front door of their room than to have the courage and the gumption to say what's on that sign in a small classroom of a lot of people, of their peers in it. It takes a lot more courage for an activist to get up in a classroom of 20 or 30 students or a lecture hall of a couple hundred students and say F-U-C-K UVA and link police officers to the KKK than it does to hang a sign on a door when you're not really next to the sign, because those law rooms are not tied to specific people. You'd have to do a lot of research to figure out whose room that is. I've seen a lot of activists and a lot of very left-leaning people at the University of Virginia. And oftentimes when confronted face-to-face, as Mr. Ellis did, their reaction is to close the door and run away from the fight.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And that's the difference, Mr. Sellers, the executive director of the Jefferson Council. Respect you, respect your organization, the commentary that Mr. Bacon is offering. You should come on the program. You're welcome on the show anytime. We're getting emails from the organization to come on the show.
Nice.
Okay? Come on anytime you want. But that's the difference. You make a great point of the lawn. These activists aren't going to say it in a classroom.
Yeah.
And before we get to Ken Cuccinelli, you remember this phrase, ladies and gentlemen, the grass is not always greener on the other side. Because what you're getting with Ken Cuccinelli is perhaps a more conservative extremist than Bert Ellis, and that's crazy to say. Okay? But that's what you're getting with Ken Cuccinelli. To close the Bert Ellis piece, the co-founder of the Jefferson Council, he eradicated diversity, equity, and inclusion, and he did it in the way we all knew he was going to do it. He went from Atlanta to Charlottesville to cut a sign down. He called students numbnuts. He got in a verbal sparring match with Robert Hardy, the rector. He sparred with Jim Ryan. He hard-clocked Jim Ryan, saying you have 30 days and I'm going to count 30 days. He voted no on a number of capital improvement projects and said before voting no, you better cut $200 million off the budget. He said the DEI payroll was fat and bloated. He made sure that everyone knew he was there. And you know what? Glenn Youngkin knew this when he appointed him. The Democrats told him. History told him. He still appointed him because he knew that Ellis was going to be a bulldog with eradicating diversity, equity, inclusion. And that's when he did. And as soon as Ellis eradicated DEI from UVA, Glenn Youngkin did his victory lap on national media.
Are we sure it's eradicated?
It's eradicated from UVA.
Are we sure Youngkin hasn't acted too soon?
He did his victory lap, ladies and gentlemen, on national media and said it's done. And then he pink slips Ellis. And he gives Youngkin a Weasley way out. Tie it to health or tie it to too busy with business. And Ellis said, no, that's not who I am. And of course that's not who he is. He's a man of principle and character, a double who, where honor is probably important to is definitely important to him. And then finally Youngkin writes him a Dear John letter, picked up by the media. He basically breaks up with Bert Ellis like a 17-year-old teenager breaks up with their boyfriend or girlfriend via text message. That's what Youngkin did. And if Glenn Youngkin does not realize that he looks weak today, he looks like a man that used another person to get what he wanted today. He looks like all the elements of politics that no one likes today. And then he chooses to replace Ellis with Ken Cuccinelli. Do you want to start with the who, what, when, where, why of Cuccinelli, Judah?
He's a lawyer, a politician. He's greatly disliked by the Democrats. They will cite a lot of the things that they feel he's done wrong, and the fact that apparently he hasn't been a very good attorney general. A lot of his initiatives have not panned out, and overall, he just seems to me kind of like a cookie cutter. Far right conservative.
I would never use the word cookie cutter.
No?
Cookie cutter for someone who's vehemently opposed to same-sex marriage?
Yeah, cookie cutter far right conservative.
The far right conservative of 2025 is no longer the far right conservative of 20 years ago.
Okay, that's
the conservative, and maybe viewers and listeners will disagree with me. The conservative of today is not anywhere staunchly opposed to same-sex marriage. The conservative,
sure about that?
Viewers and listeners, offer your perspective, please. The conservative of today is not on that hill or that mountain or that platform of anti-homosexuality. Far from it.
Okay.
That is embraced, welcomed by, I would say, parties of across the board. Parties across the board. Viewers and listeners agree or disagree with that statement. Cuccinelli vehemently opposed to it.
Yeah.
Cuccinelli driving efforts and laws to ban same-sex marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Cuccinelli against climate change. Cuccinelli investigated climate scientists.
Yeah. At UVA.
Cuccinelli as hardliner as you're going to find when it comes to immigration. This guy is a more radical version of Ellis.
Some ways, yeah.
Ellis's radicalism was associated with his principles at the University of Virginia. Mm-hmm. Ellis's radicalism was not associated with same-sex marriage,
right,
sodomy,
yeah,
climate change, homosexuality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cuccinelli's is.
I know.
Unbelievable. The textbook example of the grass is not always greener. Cuccinelli, a UVA grad. What are your thoughts on this, viewers and listeners? Juan Sarmiento watching the program. Maria Marshall Barnes, Kathy Carpenter, Dan Blake, your thoughts. Georgia Gilmer, love to get the Jefferson Council on here to talk about this, Ben Sellers. Deep Throat says, Judah, you make a good point that Ellis is less likely, similar views to Ellis, but less likely to do crazy things. You want to push back on that or offer perspective?
Say that again.
Same ideology as Ellis, but less likely to do crazy things.
Cuccinelli?
I think he's more likely to do crazy things just behind the scenes. In less visible fashion. The straw that broke Ellis's back was the interview with the Daily Progress, where he was talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What were the 3 verbs he used in that?
Oh, man. Rend, tear, destroy. I don't remember the exact
John
words.
Blair watching the program. Without getting into personalities, I guess a good government question is this. Who should be the governing body of a 5 billion plus year organization with diverse interests such as education, a health system, real estate development, etc.? Should the General Assembly establish set criteria for anyone to be considered Board of Visitors members, except that I contributed a lot to the governor? Great question. And he tried to answer our question in the beginning of the show. The most famous horse is Secretariat. And he said, don't forget about the donkey in which Jesus rode on Palm Sunday, probably the most well-known one. He said, I thought you and Judah would love to read, is it Incitus? Caligula's horse?
Oh, man. That's a great band, by the way.
Rumored to be appointed a consul in Rome. Do you know this horse? Incitatus also literally had a stable made out of 100% marble, and then he shared a link to Wikipedia about this horse.
Spelled?
What?
How's it spelled?
You're talking over me. Incitatus. It's a crazy time.
I did know that he made his horse.
What's that?
I did know that he made his horse a senator. What about Rocinante? I don't think everybody knows the name, but everybody knows the guy who tilts at windmills.
Vanessa Parkhill asked this question: does this move by Glenn Youngkin, does he believe it will be a plus towards his presidential run?
Maybe it's some type of political alliance that he's aiming for here.
Political alliance with Ken Cuccinelli? What is the political alliance? If this guy wanted to make a run for president, this is what if this guy wanted to use this, okay, if you're in politics, and it's just like business, with business and in politics, and frankly, it's a lot of things in life. This is what I found, okay? Politics, business, life. When there's problems or there's drama or there's uncertainty or there's concern, there's opportunity. How you manage or navigate that drama or uncertainty or that concern or that unexpected outcome will determine a lot of winning and losing in life, certainly in business and certainly in politics. Youngkin could have navigated this Burt Ellis brouhaha in very different fashion. He could have said, all right, I'm going to fire Mr. Ellis. I got what I wanted with the eradication of DEI from UVA. I'm going to replace him with a candidate that is way more centered in ideology, way more mainstream, maybe even slightly middle to left leaning. Because if he did that, think about it.
Doesn't he have that in most of his
Think
other
about
candidates?
it if he does that. He still has done 12 other appointments on the board out of 17. And he's got more appointments coming up. This replacement right here would be the most visible replacement, way more visible than the other 4 that he's going to appoint to the board in July. Because he's firing somebody. And has this ever happened?
That's a good question.
Do we know, John? Does any view Deep Throat? Has this ever officially happened? So he replaces Ellis with somebody, just bear with me here. He replaces with Ellis with somebody that's more mainstream or conservative or mild-mannered. If he does that, that's still going to maintain his conservative or Republican backing because he eradicated DEI. But it will also win him some points with liberals and the left-leaning and the activists because he's replacing the most outspoken guy with a mild-mannered, centered individual. So if he really wanted to make a run for president and he wanted to use this drama and this brouhaha to his advantage, he does it that way. Instead, all he has done is he's stirred the hornet's nest. This guy has stirred the hornet's nest with Cuccinelli. Because any kind of basic reading on the internet, when you Google this man's name, the first thing you're probably going to come across is what? His Wikipedia page. And when you come across his Wikipedia page, what? In the 3rd paragraph, this is what you read about him. Are you ready? This is the 3rd paragraph of Ken Cuccinelli's Wikipedia page. A self-described opponent of homosexuality, Cuccinelli, in his position as Virginia Attorney General, defended anti-sodomy laws and prohibitions on same-sex marriage. Cuccinelli rejects the scientific consensus on climate change, and his position as Attorney General investigated climate scientists whom he accused of fraud. He's characterized as an immigration hardliner. Cuccinelli sought to prohibit undocumented immigrants from attending universities, repeal birthright citizenship, and force employees to speak English in the workplace. That paragraph right there is a paragraph that describes, for the large chunk of Americans, I would say, a man of shady morality and character, or questionable judgment, I would say. Certainly in 2025. You disagree with that statement?
I don't know. I think he's a bulldog in very different ways than Ellis is a bulldog.
Okay. Well, I think you words matter with your commentary here. And when you read a paragraph just like that, the response to what I just read from his Wikipedia page is important. And my response to something like I just read would not be he's a bulldog in a lot of ways.
Okay. What would your response be?
My response was a man of questionable judgment and morality and character.
Why do you say questionable morality and character? I'm curious.
Which part of this paragraph? You must speak English in the workplace? I'm going to do whatever I can, Cuccinelli says, to oppose same-sex marriage? Is this what... I don't stand for this.
But you think that impugns his morality?
I think that absolutely impugns his judgment and certainly questions his character and morality. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. We're having a conversation here. In 2025 here in America. Yeah. We're in America in 2025. Do you have problems with same-sex marriage?
I don't. But do you think that has largely gone away? That there is nobody on the right or in the conservative sector that is against all that same stuff?
I think.
Are you saying that's an outlier?
I think the conservative sector in 2025. The elements that we just outlined in this paragraph are much less a priority for right-leaning voters than what it was 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, right-leaning voters.
I think today's voters and today's people in general take people with you can love whoever you want.
You can't say that there's not a significant section of America that
say
still
there's
believes...
a portion of America. I don't say it's a significant portion.
Okay.
Viewers and listeners, I'm very curious of the take of the viewers and listeners here. But this is what this guy is.
Yeah. I'm still not sure.
Let me ask you this question, okay? Mm-hmm. And let me ask the viewers and listeners this question. If you had the UVA undergraduate student that lived on the lawn, that had the sign on her door that said FUCK UVA and KKK police, the sign on her door. Yeah. And she was able to research Bert Ellis, and she was able to research Ken Cuccinelli. Who do you think that student on the lawn would say absolutely no? If she had to pick one of those two for the Board of Visitors, who would she say absolutely no to first?
Oh, man.
This is a slam dunk answer.
You think?
It is a slam dunk answer.
You think she would pick Bert Ellis every time over Cuccinelli? You think she would pick Cuccinelli?
Cooch doesn't have a track record. Razorblade doesn't have a track record like Cooch. Razorblade's track record is of business and passion to UVA. Yeah. Razorblade's track record is of single sanction honor code. Razorblade's track record is make the university more affordable. Razorblade's track record is we don't want to become the Ivy Leagues. Razorblade's track record is one of cut, bloat, and spending and DEI. Cooch's track record is let's tar and feather and scarlet letter folks of same-sex marriage and immigrants and non-English speakers and climate scientists. The track record of Ellis is capitalists who wants to return UVA to its traditional roots. Yeah. The track record of Cooch is questionable judgment at best.
Okay. I'm not arguing with you.
I want you to argue with me. I love and we can have a conversation too. We don't have to argue. We're just going back. It's a talk show.
I agree with most of that. I still don't know if after having Bert Ellis knock on her door with whether it was scissors or a razor blade.
Bill McChesney says Cooch is diametrically opposed to the majority of the University of Virginia demographic.
Okay.
Deep Throat shares a graph, a Gallup poll. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Deep Throat. Can you go to my Twitter DMs and get the Gallup poll on same-sex marriages?
All right.
Should or should not be recognized by law as valid? Please, if you could, please, Sir Judah. It's in my Twitter DMs. Thank you, Deep Throat. Welcome back. You make the program better. He's got data that I think backs up absolutely what I'm saying.
Okay.
Dude, I don't give a rat's ass who you like, who you love, who you hold hands with, who you kiss, who you marry.
I know.
Who you slap skins with.
I'm the same way.
I don't care who you slap skins with. I don't care what you do. Don't care. You know what I care about? I care about my family, my wife, my children. I care about my rights, my personal rights.
I'm not arguing about anything that you believe in.
I think most people in 2025, more people than we realize in 2025, are socially liberal and fiscally conservative. I think that's the middle of America in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But we're extreme,
I agree with
pulled
you
to these
100%.
extreme sides because of social media.
Yeah.
Do you have that poll?
I will soon.
Thank you. I don't care less who you marry.
I couldn't care less
I'm not
either.
talking about you. I'm talking about it in general. If you're my friend, you're my friend. If we have common ground, we have common ground. If you treat me, I treat people with the golden rule. If you do return the favor, we're going to be homies. Don't tell me the government to tell me to stay home, though. Don't tell me if you're the government, you can't leave your house. Don't tell me if you're the government where I can shop or where I can't shop or how I can go about my shopping. Don't tell me if you're the government what I need to wear or what I need to cover. Don't tell me if you're the government that I need to prioritize big box over locally owned and operated. Don't tell me that. I didn't change a damn thing during COVID. You got that graph?
Working on it.
Unbelievable. Juan Sarmiento says, Cooch is definitely a man, Judah, of questionable character and morality. Cooch is from a political arena, and Razorblade is from the business end, but that does not detract from his far-right views that he's known for. The extent of what Bert is known... Do we have the graph?
I'm working on it.
The extent of what Bert is known for is returning UVA to its traditional roots. Did he do it in a bull in a china shop path or approach? Yes, he did. And you know what? There's something to be said for people that go about their life true to themselves, regardless of how people judge them. Mm-hmm. Some of my best friends in life, and you know what? Me to a certain extent. I take that back. Me to 1,000% extent. I could really care. Do you know what is a truly liberating feeling and a truly empowering feeling in life? Do you know what a truly empowering feeling is life? When you wake up every day and you don't give a shit what other people think of you. You wake up every day and you're like, this is who I am. I am going to be that person every day, regardless of other people think, because it's too exhausting to fake.
Right.
It's too tiring to keep up with these ploys and these various faces. So I'm just going to do this. And if you don't like it, that's okay. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to talk. If you do like it, I'm going to give you the golden rule approach, and I hope you give it back. And if you burn me once, fine, I'll give you a second chance. Burn me twice, there won't be a third. But when you wake up every day and you're just true to who you are as a person, you don't have this like mindset spent on what your personality is going to be depending on who you're talking to. So it opens up so much bandwidth to pursue other fantastic qualities that God has given you. Can we show the graph?
It's on screen.
Okay, take a look at the screen. Thank you, Deep Throat. This is a Gallup national survey with the headline, "Do you think marriages between same-sex couples should or should not be recognized by the law as valid with the same rights as traditional marriages?" Notice how the should not be valid, the blue line, is plummeted over the last, 20, 30 years, probably? And notice the green line, should be valid, has skyrocketed. The temperature on the street for American voters is a temperature, I would bet you, in large portion of socially liberal, physically conservative. In a lot of ways, Youngkin, in a lot of ways, has embodied some of those qualities. That's why this Cuccinelli appointment is just head-scratching.
Yeah.
Jeremy Wilson's watching in Tennessee. He says certain agendas are forced upon people. That's the big issue. How someone lives is their choice, but to force others to like it is the problem. That's it. That's it. I don't care what someone does in the house, in their time. I don't care. It's forcing me to do something that is the problem. And that was my whole problem with how the pandemic was managed. It was dictated to us.
Mm-hmm.
We were in a dictatorship.
Yeah.
We were told to what was it called when we had to be in our houses? Lockdown?
Mm-hmm.
Sequester? We were told not to leave. We were told you can't learn school in classrooms. We were told you're forced to wear a mask. We were told you can't shop local. You can't go to your favorite restaurants or your favorite shops or your favorite breweries or bars or your favorite boutiques, your favorite salons, and couldn't get haircuts.
Mm-hmm.
We were told you need to shop with these big box stores because they're doing, we know they vetted the proper pandemic protocols, or shop online. We were seduced and romanticized and tantalized like greyhound dogs chasing a rabbit at a racetrack with money in the mail. I know we don't like what you're doing, the government says, but we'll give you money to stay home. So we towed the governmental line because they were pumping money into our mailbox. This whole $5,000 Elon Musk Doge payment that people are talking about. You want to know something crazy? The $5,000 Elon Musk Doge payment, you read about that?
A little bit, yeah.
I think that's some bull duty too. You know why I think that's some bull duty? When the government gives you money like that in your mailbox, sends you the money, there's always strings attached. And you know what the strings that were attached during the money that came in the mailboxes to COVID? You know what those strings that were attached? It was these strings. Lockdown at your house, don't leave your house. Prioritize big box over locally owned and operated. Wear masks all the time. Become obese because you're not leaving the house. Gain weight. Oh, by the way, it's going to cause massive inflation. It's going to prop up the stock market. It's going to make the housing ecosystem out of control expensive. Since COVID, collateral damage, houses out of control expensive. We're going to massively deflate interest rates. Oh, there's going to be no collateral damage to offering Americans 2% and 3% rates? Americans that otherwise could not afford to buy homes, now able to afford homes because of historically low interest rates. Now 40, 50, 60% of America's not getting off those interest rates, golden handcuffs. The people that are trying to buy houses, young millennials and Gen Zers, can't buy homes because there's no inventory. Why would there be inventory? Why would you give up 2 and 3% 30-year mortgage vehicles? Collateral damage from COVID and that money that comes into our mailbox from the government. We didn't push back or ask the questions because they instilled fear in us and they told us what to do, and then they seduced us and romanticized us and tantalized us like greyhounds on a racetrack chasing a machine rabbit with money. What's the strings attached with the 5,000 Doge payments? Do we not think giving everyone $5,000 is going to create inflation? Do we not think giving everyone $5,000 is going to have additional strings? Oh. Not every dollar is worth the same. I've been in business, self-employed for 17 years on May 29th. 17 years of waking up every day and figuring out how I'm going to pay the mortgage, feed my family. My wife's a stay-at-home mom, got 2 boys, school tuition. 17 years of that. And taken 17 years to figure out, not 17 years, probably figured that out halfway through, not every dollar is worth the same. You see it firsthand with this. Got some clients that are paying X amount of dollars, other clients paying X amount of dollars. And it's oftentimes the clients that are paying the lowest amount that create the most headache. Is it not? Crazy. We're an hour and 4 minutes in onto this program. Ken Cuccinelli is on the Board of Visitors. I would encourage you to research who Glenn Youngkin has appointed to the UVA BOV. I thank Deep Throat for giving us that chart. Thank John Blair and the viewers and listeners for these kind of comments. I appreciate you guys doing this, riding along this show with us. Two items out of the notebook. And Mr. Sellers of the Jefferson Council, the executive director, I sincerely mean this. Come on the program. We had the previous executive director on the show. What was that man's name?
I'd have to look it up.
Mr. Sellers, come on the show. Pass it along to Bert Ellis to come on the show too. Sincerely mean that. Last items out of the notebook. Curtis Staples. Thomas Neal, the president of the Jefferson Council, came on the program in the past.
Yeah.
Curtis Staples, former UVA basketball great, is, according to the Augusta Free Press, interviewing for the general manager position with this men's basketball team. What's intriguing about that is that general manager's position may report to the athletic director and may not be an underlink of the head coach, Ryan Odom. And the last item of the notebook is Isaac McKneely is now being linked to the University of Kentucky, to the North Carolina Tar Heels, to the Louisville Cardinals, to the West Virginia Mountaineers, while still potentially keeping his options open at the University of Virginia. If Isaac McKneely has a chance to play at UNC, Kentucky, Louisville, and West Virginia, he clearly made the right decision of entering the transfer portal. And I want McKneely to end up in the best situation possible with the most money earned possible. I think he deserves that with his last year of eligibility. I want to remind the viewers and listeners that tonight, if you do not have tickets to the Pro Nata show, Judah, with Tim Shropshire They're $10 tickets, and you have a nationally known comedian in Crozet at Pro Renata, one of the funniest guys in the business, Tim Shropshire. And speaking of locally owned and operated, support the businesses that you want to see make it another 60 years. And the Vermillion family, they embody that quality. We saw them yesterday, John and Andrew Vermillion. East High Street and online at charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com. Judah Wickower, yours truly, Jerry Miller, on a passionate Thursday afternoon for the I Love CVille show. So long, my friends.
Mics are on.